Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'm here tonight to review 3 U.S. literary journals. Well, 2 are technically, I guess, anthologies. and I'm focusing on short stories, although 2 of them also publish more than short stories. But I'm a short story writer, so I feel like I have more of a leg to stand on when critiquing them. Also, most importantly, am taking this time to review small literary magazines to give a shout out to this sort of publication. There are so many literary journals and small press anthologies that are out there in the US, let alone the rest of the world, and none of them will ever get as much play as like the big publishers, so I thought, why not at least dedicate one annual video to them? I also make some videos on short stories in general throughout the year, so I will link down to my short story playlist below. So the first journal, a technical literary journal that I want to review, is Free State Review. It is a biannual literary magazine that started in 2013. They publish short stories, poetry, and essays, and they're put out by a small nonprofit, Galileo Books, and they have strong ties to Annapolis, Maryland. So the first short story that I want to highlight is Choking on the Bone by Brandon French. You can see some of my notes in here. What I really liked about this story was how it chronicled a short-lived relationship and slowly built up the idea of the protagonist's obsessive nature. And then this one is Bright Blue by Karen Cole. This is a story that features an unlikable, crotchety old man, and it jumps around in time a little from when he was a younger, more virile man and independent to what he is now, which is living in his daughter's house and slowly losing all of that independence. And so I thought it was well done. Next, I have the first of my anthologies. This is called Beach Life. It's an annual anthology put out by Cat and Mouse Press. Each edition has a slightly different title and theme, but all stories include Rehoboth Beach, Delaware as a setting. There's around 25 short stories, which is all that's published in here, and this is pretty much book length. But 25 short stories are picked to be in this collection, with a few particularly singled out as prize winners and judges award winners. The prize winners get a money prize from Rehoboth Indie Bookstore Browse About Books. And the anthology has been in production since 2013. So there's a lot of short stories in here, so I highlighted a few more than I did the last time around. This is The Mime's Niece by Emily Sasada. This is about a woman who leaves a soul-crushing set of jobs in Annapolis, Maryland, and moves to her uncle's home in Rehoboth Beach. Her uncle, who is now deceased, was a mime, and she's trying to start herself up in that business. I thought it was very tender. This is Too Many Hemingways by Joseph L. Crossan. This story is about a bookstore owner who finds a rare copy of The Old Man and the Sea and spends a lot of money to obtain it and brings it back to her shop and creates an event to showcase it, and she gets a bunch of Hemingway impersonators who come to the shop, and it's really kind of funny, and they dress like him and talk like him, and then one of them steals the book in order to send her a sort of message that you get at the end. It was very clever. Here's the first place winner, Some Girls by Michael Sprouse. I thought this was just a very touching story. I mean, first of all, it takes place with a poorer family that lives in the Rehoboth Beach area, and the young man in the 60s actually is turning 13, and his mother is working long hours at a hotel for very little money, and so we get a little bit of his life on the boardwalk and obsessing over the Mick Jagger album Some Girls, which he really wants, and he ends up getting a $20 bill like that kind of flies over to him when he's on a bench looking at the sea, and he has to debate what to do with it. And maybe it's a little pat, but it's still very touching, and I like the characters. This is A Day in the Life by David Strauss. It's one of those stories that takes a bunch of characters who don't really know each other and have them cross paths on this day at Rehoboth and show how the Rehoboth atmosphere affects all of them, and at the end they all sort of meet each other like in passing. So I thought that pacing was very well done. I enjoyed that. And finally, The Shot Shared Round the World by Joy Givens. I feel like this one also has a little bit of a pat ending, but I was very drawn to it. It is a story that takes place definitely in the present. It is the drama of the story revolves completely around social media. The protagonist is a young teenage girl who snuck out to a concert when she was supposed to be studying and ends up getting this really embarrassing picture taken with a singer, and the picture goes completely viral, and there's lots of hashtags and Instagram, and there's a big fear as she and her family are coming to the beach for their holiday of her parents finding out what she did, and she and her cousins are going on this sort of media blitz, online media blitz, to try to undo the damage. And there's just so much reference to all of the popular social media of today, and I thought it was deftly handled that I found it very tickling. Because actually with my short story, which is published in District Lines, I put in a lot of stuff about social media too, and so I guess I appreciate someone else taking in our modern day accoutrements. And it has an ending with the grandfather that is really sweet, even if it is a little pat, and goes to that ending of how family can overcome anything. And finally, speaking of District Lines, this is Volume 5 of the annual anthology put out by the DC indie bookstore Politics and Prose. They publish short stories, essays, poetry, and artwork, photography and other artwork. They've been in production since 2013, and usually I only focus on 2 anthologies, but my short story, Quarter Life, was just published in here last week, so I thought I'd take the chance to read the other short stories that were published along with mine and give a bit of a shout out. This one is definitely my favorite. It is Where to Go From Here by Monica L. Saxton. She actually read from a little bit of this at the launch event last week, and so I was glad to read the rest of the story. It's very much a slice of life story that takes place with these 2 young girls, like at the end of high school. They're walking down H Street into an area that the author said at the launch she focused on because H Street has changed a lot in the last few decades, and the girls are thinking about that because they used to live there and now they live in Brooklyn. They're going to visit with a couple of boys or men that one of the girls met at work, and the very short exchange deals with mostly with the girls, who they are, where they are. They're both sort of at a cusp of change because they're about to leave school and what comes next, and they both have different things going on. And then there's a little bit of an emergency that takes them away, but that doesn't feel forced or anything. It feels like part of the story, really. And it's just a really nice slice of life story where in that moment the protagonist can think about where she is and what friendship means in this very visceral DC setting. So that about covers it for me. My neighbor's dog is being very chatty right now. I live in a condo, so I get to hear him a bit. I don't know if it'll come on the feed or not, but I'll leave links to all of these anthology literary magazines down below, and I'll be posting throughout the year and into coming years about these sorts of publications and about short stories as a whole. If you have any that you want to bring to my attention, please leave them down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.